Okay, my friends, welcome back to the channel. We are at the end of 2017. Can you believe it? Another year has been and gone. Now, I find people say a lot of funny things near the end of a year. One of the things that quite a lot of people say is, I can't believe that's the year gone. The year went so quick. Now, I'm not saying that I'll never experience a year going quick, but to me, I'm like, that year didn't go quick. A year is a long time. A lot of things happen in a year. To me, I look back and say, yes, it seems like suddenly I was there and then now I'm here. But actually, I can see that there is a long sequence of events between the 1st of January and the 31st of December of a particular year. So to me, I never think that year has gone by quickly. Yes, there are times when you suddenly realize that 3 months has gone, 6 months has gone since a particular event. But a lot happens in a year. And during a year, we learn a lot of things, we grow in a lot of different ways. And what I'd like to do in this video is to share, for me personally, what have I learned and how have I grown in 2017. And hopefully some of these lessons are going to have applicability to yourselves. What I find in my role as a teacher and as a thought leader and as someone who looks to inspire others and mentor people to their own particular successes, you always have to stay one step ahead of the game. If you want to be able to teach students, you need to stay ahead of your students. You need to stay ahead in terms of knowledge, in terms of growth, in terms of application, because otherwise, how can you serve your students? If you and your students are on the same level, then there is no way that you can help your students to grow. So in the role as a teacher and as anyone who has those that they mentor and support on journeys of growth, you have to stay ahead of the game. You have to do your own learning and your own growth at a faster rate and a more consistent rate than those who look to you for advice and support. So hopefully what I've learned and how I've grown this particular year is going to help you guys, my audience, my viewers, students, clients, to get something out of 2018. Because another thing that gets said at this time of year is, what's next? What do we want for the next year? What are our aims, ambitions, projects, ideas, adventures, exploration? What do we want to do in the next year? What do you want to do in 2018? Hopefully some of what I've learned in 2017 may help you in your own personal journey from this year and in the years to come. So let's get started. I've got 5 lessons for you. And the first lesson is we're going straight in, we're going deep, we're hammering home. And I have a confession to make, or a moment of revelation, or just coming out straight and being honest, I guess, is what I'm trying to say here. And that is, for those of you who've been following the YouTube channel religiously, you've been following my work on social media religiously, you might not notice this if you're watching this in the future, but if you're watching this very close to the time of filming, you'll notice there has been a big gap between this video that I'm filming here and the last video that I did on my YouTube channel. There's a big gap between what I've posted here on Facebook or wherever you're seeing this, my Facebook group, and the last time I posted something on Facebook or on my Facebook group. And this is simply because I had a death in the family. And what this lesson, or the lesson that's come from this, is that we are all living on a timer. And this is something that's actually been apparent a couple times this year. We all have this timer. Yes, we all know that life is finite and we all know that we're going to die someday, but so often we don't live with that knowledge. We don't live with the urgency of knowing that one day will be our last day. And the realization that life is on a timer kind of hit me a couple times this year. And actually the first time it hit me was all the way back at the start of the year in January on something that might seem quite innocuous. I was rewatching the television show How I Met Your Mother. Now, I was a big fan of How I Met Your Mother when it was out, when it was airing on TV. I watched it all the way through. For those of you who know the end, you'll know that it kind of ties up the whole story and sequel of what happens, i.e. How I Met Your Mother, the main character is talking to his children in the future about how he met their mother. Now, since watching the final episode, I'd never re-watched the whole television show to watch it from start to end and see how all the character arcs and dynamics lead to that final point, that final episode. For those of you who have seen the episode, you'll know that there is a certain plot twist that was quite controversial. For those of you who haven't seen the TV show and want to see the TV show, I recommend you shut off your volume for the next minute or so whilst I reveal what that plot twist is. You've been warned, silence, mute now, because as those of you who watch the TV show or have watched the TV show, you will know that the mother dies. You will know that Ted Mosby and lovely Tracy, oh God, what was her second name? Tracy McGonigal? It began with M. Sure, it's Tracy McGonigal. Ted Mosby and Tracy McGonigal, they sadly do not have the rest of their lives. They do not have the happily ever after because Tracy dies. And her and Ted only got to spend 11 or so years together. They were perfect for each other. They were soulmates. They were life partners, but they didn't get the time that they deserved. And weirdly enough, I was watching in January that final episode once again, when Ted reveals to his children and you see the life that him and the mother have together, and then he reveals what it was like when she passed away. And this, of course, is when we, the audience, find out that the mother is no longer with us. And all the way back there in January, that really sort of made me take stock. And I know about death, and I know about the fragile veneer that can exist between life and between death, with the experience of losing my dad and just generally seeing other people in my life die and pass away. But that sort of hammered home the message again. And this was actually, I was watching this very close to when I finally published my first book this year, The Last 60 Minutes. And just around that time I was thinking of the story and the lessons of The Last 60 Minutes again. And here comes How I Met Your Mother, with the story of two people in love and one of those lovers sadly passing away. And it made me recognize that we do have a finite time, and we also don't know how much time we have. Ted and Tracy didn't know how much time that they had together, and this awakened a new urgency in me to make sure I did the things that were really important in my life, not just in business, but things for myself and things in my relationships. And the product of those revelations is actually something I'm not going to reveal right now, but I made certain decisions and I became clear on certain things that I wanted to do, which I'm going to share with you as time goes on. But now is not quite the moment. But suffice to say, that was the first recognition and the first remembrance that I had that we are all on a timer. And of course, as I mentioned earlier in the video, another big thing that hit was I lost my stepdad this year. My stepdad passed away to cancer. And that was also a very surreal state of affairs. Back then in January, we didn't know that there was anything wrong with Andrew. He wasn't ill, he was in good health, good spirits. They were planning for not just the year ahead, but the years ahead. And right here as I record in December, Andrew is gone. He didn't get to see the end of the year. Now, again, I might share the story of what went on a little bit more in other places and in other material. But quite simply put, it was obviously a very short time between when we found out and when Andrew passed away. And we didn't have a whole lot of time with Andrew, and certainly not a whole lot of quality time with Andrew. By the time that he had his diagnosis, he then went into chemo, He then had health complications that severely impaired his mobility and his functioning. And so we lost a lot of time with Andrew. And sadly, just in the middle of November, about 7 weeks ago, Andrew passed away. And it was a real blow to the family, a real blow to my mum and to my half-brother who Andrew left behind. And again, this just sort of made me realize that we don't know when our time is up. We all have this timer, tick, 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 tick. What are we going to do in this time that we have on earth? What person are we going to be? What impact are we going to make? Who are the people that we want to spend time with? That is one of the key tenets of All For Your Life, is recognizing that you have this one shot at this one life. Whatever you believe spiritually, religiously, whether this is one life or one of many lives, this particular life, right here, right now, is a one-shot affair. You don't get to go back and edit and redo and modify this life. You have to do it right, or as right as you can, in the time that we have. So it made me question again, what do I want to do with my life? What person do I want to be? What impact do I want to make? Who are the people I want to spend time with? Because one person I wanted to spend time with was no longer here. So this is something I want you to think about going into the year ahead, is what life do you want to live? Now there's a saying, live each day as if it's your last, and I think that's actually a rubbish saying, because if we lived each day as if it was our last, we would all be going out and doing drugs and having sex with everything that moved, wouldn't we? If we had 24 hours left on Earth, we would be finding the shortest path to the most amount of happiness. And those activities, I think, would be ranking pretty highly for that. So living each day as if it's your last is rubbish, short-term advice. But what you should do is live knowing that one day will be your last. Because for all of us, one day will be our last day on Earth. And when we're on that last day, are you going to look back and are you going to be happy with the person you were, the work that you did, and the people you spent time with? Answering those questions are the most important answers that you can create in your life. And I was reminded of this through lesson number 1 of 2017, this reminder that we all have a timer. So, moving on to lesson number 2, and a segue from this is talking about losing someone that was very dear to me and who I loved. The second lesson is any decision made on love, by love, or with love is the right decision. It might not necessarily be the correct decision, but it'll always be the right decision. Now, what do I mean by this? Where this lesson comes from is during this year, me and my partner, we moved geographically. We were in Bristol in the United Kingdom for the first half of the year, and we made the decision collectively to move to here, right here, Glasgow in Scotland in the United Kingdom. Now, the reason we made this decision was my partner wasn't particularly happy with the state of affairs living in Bristol for a variety of reasons that are personal and I won't disclose here, but suffice to say, things weren't going the way that she wanted and collectively the way that I wanted and we wanted. Because if one of you is unhappy in a relationship, then both of you are unhappy. Because that unhappiness oozes and feeds into the I, the you, and the we. All 3 components are affected if one of those components isn't doing very well. So we have to look at our options and say, how can we make the situation better? And this is something that we actually did at the start of 2017. We looked at the year ahead and we said, what can we do to change the situation? And weighing up the various options, the pros and cons, we saw that the best option was to leave Bristol, to move back to Glasgow, and my partner has gone back to university to study a master's and to hone her training and her career path into something that she feels far more comfortable and far more aligned with. Now, I also had to make a decision as me, as the single in the relationship. I had to make a decision, was I going to move as well? Because I wasn't unhappy in Bristol. I was unhappy that my partner was unhappy. But for me personally, I was really enjoying living there. My work was going well. I felt that the place really aligned with who I was as a person. I had great relationships. And I had to make a decision, am I going to leave this behind? And so I saw that there was this clear choice between, am I going to choose between my partner, or am I going to choose between what I want personally? And I wrestled with this over the months. I was committed to my partner. I loved my partner, but also it was a very difficult choice for me to leave what was going so well for me and what was making me happy. And ultimately, across the months, I wrestled and I bounced between the two camps, but ultimately, the decision always came back to being with my partner, to being with the person that I loved. And so we moved away from Bristol, and I left behind some of those things that I enjoyed so much and made me happy. And we've yet to see fully how that decision transpires. We're 4 months into being back in Glasgow, and my partner is studying again. I've taken my work with me. We've had some difficult and challenging times during this period. It was actually when we moved that my stepdad started to get really ill, and we had that hanging over us, and that concern and that negativity and that sadness. So we've yet to see quite how the decision is going to transpire. But actually, no matter how the decision transpires, it will be a right decision. And no matter how the decision transpires, if I could go back to that point where I chose between staying and moving, I would make the same decision each time. Now, why is that? Because even if the decision isn't a correct one, if you make a decision based on love, it is always the right one. You see, what made me want to stay in Bristol was fear. It was fear of change. It was fear of a new direction. It was fear of things not working out, because Bristol represented certainty and comfort for me. And yes, those are nice things to have, but what the decision to stay would have been based on would have been fear. The decision to move was based on love. I love my partner so much that I'm willing to give up things going well for me in order to make the best possible life and situation for her and ultimately for us. So that is why I'll make the same decision each and every time. When you have a decision between fear and love, always choose love, because it might not necessarily be correct in terms of it working out perfectly the way you'd want it to, but it'll always be the right one. Because right now in our world, we have so many people who are making decisions not based on love. They're making decisions based on fear. We just have to look at the narrative of the world, the conflict, the segregation, the animosity. These scenarios come from people making decisions based on fear. And if we want to create change, not just in our lives, but in the world, then we need to start making decisions based on love. And that's the second lesson that I learned in 2017. Whereas anytime that I have a decision, even a difficult one, and especially a difficult one, what is the decision that is based on love? What direction can I take that is the direction of love, of being in love and working towards love, rather than moving away from love and being in fear? Now again, talking about relationships, lesson number 3 this year was stick to your values. And there's a couple of things that came up this year that really tested, actually again, my decision making, and tested again, what are my values as an individual? The first thing that came up was early in the year, I just published my book, The Last 60 Minutes. It was doing well in a small but significant way, and I received an offer in March or April. It was someone who wanted to bulk order copies of my book. Now, this particular individual representing this particular company wanted to order 1,400 copies of my book. 1,400 copies! I was like, wow, I'm selling a couple at a time at book sales and online videos, and someone wants to buy 1,400 at once? Now, as I started to talk with this individual, I started to have some questions on what was going to happen. And long story short, the individual wanted to sell my books for slightly below market value. So my book retails at $9.97, and they wanted to sell it for about £7 or £8. Not something I was hugely against. That was kind of the win for them, was they got to sell slightly below market value and have an exclusive sort of ownership of that, and that was their way that they were going to make money, by sort of being the cheapest version on the market. I was okay with that. I wasn't bothered. What bothered me though was I found out the individual wanted to sell it for £7 to £8, and for every book that was sold, I was going to end up with £1. Now, I had to make a decision here. The person was willing to pay me upfront, so for my 1,400 copies of my book, I was going to get £1,400, which is a lot of money. It's not something to be sniffed at. It would be my biggest single transaction that I'd ever made in my business. But even though that was, in one way, the most lucrative offer, it was also the least valuable. Because when I looked at that, I said, for my book, my intellectual property, my story, my experiences, my lessons, my perspective, I'm going to get 1/8 of every sale. And that didn't sit right with me. Now, I'm totally cool with having costs and sharing and collaborating, but that for me did not chime with my value of fairness, my value of collaboration, my value of creating win-win scenarios and creating synergy with people. That to me spoke of someone trying to exploit my intellectual property, and I didn't sit right with that. And so I had to decline that offer, even though at the time I was actually struggling for money, even though at the time I was really pushing to make the last 60 minutes into something meaningful that had wide exposure and wide impact. I had to look at my values and say, yeah, there's some nice money on the table, but this whole thing doesn't match my values. And so I said no. I looked to my values and I made my decision. Later in the year, I had another decision where I had to really speak to my values. It became apparent to me that there was a friend in my life, a really good friend, someone who I'd known for a long time and shared great experiences with. But it became apparent to me that this friend wasn't the friend I thought they were anymore. It became clearer and clearer to me that we were differing more and more in our values, in our approach to life. And I recognized that I couldn't stay friends with this person because our values were differing more and more. I could not be in integrity and I couldn't be in alignment spending time in their company, being in conversation with them, endorsing them in any way. And so I had to make the difficult decision to cut this friend out of my life. And the way it went down was not nice. There was a lot of anger, there was a lot of animosity, and it wasn't a clean break by any extent. But what I came to realize was that, again, it was the right decision, because I made a decision based on my deep values. I hadn't made a decision based on the fact that they happened to be my friend. I didn't make a decision based on the fact that we had a long history of being good friends. I didn't make a decision based on the fact that I was scared of losing a friend. I looked at my values and I said, this person being in my life doesn't match my values. And so this was a third and difficult lesson that I learned in 2017 was you have to stick to your values. Even when it's tough, even when you've got those tough decisions where there's something very lucrative on the table, perhaps there's lots of money, perhaps there's a nice relationship, perhaps there's the opportunity to grow and expand yourself. These nice things might be on the table if you compromise your values. And what I say to you is each and every time, if you compromise your values once, you're going to be compromising your values for the rest of your life. And if you're living a life where you're compromising your values, then you're never going to be happy, you're never going to be fulfilled. So lesson number 3, stick to your values. Now, moving on to lesson number 4. Now, lesson number 4 is adversity ends. And what I mean is that everything in our life is impermanent. We were talking earlier about life and death. Life is not permanent. Eventually, one day we die. Nothing in life is permanent. Nothing good is permanent. Nothing bad is permanent. Nothing happy is permanent. Nothing sad is permanent. And this is a really important thing to remember in times of adversity. Because the 4th lesson that I learned in 2017 is that adversity ends. There's been a couple times this year where I've been in a really tough, difficult spot. Throughout the year, if I'm honest, money has been an issue. I've been struggling with money. We, in my relationship, have been struggling with money. At the start of the year, this really came to a head, and I was in a really tough, tricky spot, and it wasn't nice. There's nothing worse than worrying about money and feeling in that place of scarcity. And as long as I was in that place of scarcity, I was finding I wasn't able to serve and give properly, because when you feel that you've got nothing that you own, nothing that you have, how can you feel that you can give? And so at the start of the year, I was struggling with money, but eventually a solution came about and I was able to rise out of that horrible difficulty. I didn't go from rags to riches in the space of weeks or months, and even this year, I haven't gone from rags to riches. I'm in a more comfortable financial situation now than at the start of the year, but it's by no means secure and abundant in a financial sense. But at the start of the year, money was really tough, but a solution emerged and I was able to rise out of my personal financial difficulties and help more in terms of our collective financial situation as a couple. Also this year, we had the move, which was a very stressful and irritating process. The move was not a clean one at all. It took a while to sort out the move at one end, and it took a while to get housed in and get comfortable at the other end. And they say that moving is the 3rd most stressful thing in your life after getting married and having a child, and I can totally see why. I've moved lots of times now, and it really is a process that I don't enjoy. It's a pain in the ass, pardon my French. And that was a stressful time, but you know what? We got through the move, nothing disastrous happened. We managed to get our home and get our base sorted somewhat, even though we had our 3rd period of adversity, which was, by this point, about a month or so after we'd moved. This is when my stepdad's health really started to deteriorate. And we quickly learned that he didn't have much time left with us. And that was a hugely difficult time. That was maybe the most difficult of the year. And that was why I made the decision back at the start of November that everything was just too much, and I had to step back. I took a step back from the business. That's why you haven't seen me on social media. That's why you haven't been getting emails from me. That's why videos haven't been coming up on this channel, because I said for the rest of the year I'm taking time out to look after myself and to look after my family. Now, there were some things that I was still doing. I still had speaking commitments booked in. I still had my membership program that I was continuing to be fully present with. Everything else, I just dialed it back and took a back seat, and I said no more for the rest of the year. And it wasn't long after I made that decision. In fact, it was 8 days after I said I'm out, I'm taking a step back, that Andrew actually passed away. So I'm glad that I made that decision just before things kind of all came to a head. But what I've learned is that adversity ends, because we lost Andrew last month, but here we are at the end of December, and things aren't nice. They're not happy. They're not back to normal, but we've been able to start moving on and saying what is life without Andrew? What is the next direction that we take? We were able to spend Christmas together as a family, and yeah, we had Andrew on our mind. We sort of had him in our thoughts and recognized that this was the first Christmas that we didn't have with him, but it was a good Christmas nonetheless, and we had great time and fun and laughs as a family. And that particular moment of adversity is not gone, it's not disappeared, but it's moved on into something else. And this is what I've seen throughout the year, is a period of adversity moves on into something else. Those money problems at the start of the year moved and transitioned into a more comfortable financial situation. That period of uncertainty and transition in the middle of the year moved on into a period of certainty and secureness. The period of grief and sadness at the end of this year has moved on into a period of hope and reflection. So what I want to say to you is that lesson number 4 is adversity ends. 2018 is not going to be any different. It's not going to be an easy year. There's going to be times of challenge, there's going to be times of adversity, but remember that in those periods of adversity, it's eventually going to end. You always emerge out onto the other side. There's always a period where it's more difficult than at other times. And if you push through that difficulty, if you push through that challenge, you do come out on the other side. Now I'd like to round off our lessons on 2017 with lesson number 5, and that is clarity comes when it's ready. This year has been a year of awakening for me. And I say this in terms of I've gained a lot of clarity on who I am and what I want to do during this year. Each of the years prior, I have gained clarity and gained insight on these things. Who is David? What does David want to do? But this year, I've had some further steps. And funnily enough, these insights have come not really through anything that I've done. There hasn't been a particular stimulus that's awakened the insights. It's more a case of the clarity. It does just come like a light bulb moment. And I don't say this to encourage people just to sit back and wait for the clarity to happen. Absolutely, the clarity comes because you've worked for it and you've worked hard for it. But what's important to remember is that clarity is not something that you force. Yes, you put in the discipline. Yes, you put in the work. You do the self-exploration. You challenge yourself. You read the books. Go to the seminars. Get the coaches. All of these things. I'm not saying that they're redundant from this lesson. But the insights actually come when you're not doing the work. It's sort of like, in fact, it's very like meditation. In that the benefits of meditation don't come when you meditate. When I sit here, this is actually where I meditate every single morning. When I sit here and meditate for my 20 minutes, 9 times out of 10, that meditation does nothing for me in the moment. Occasionally I'll sort of get a moment where I feel clearer, I feel the energy of my body change, I feel something change within me from the meditation, or I gain an awareness or an insight or an idea. That'll happen maybe 10% of the time. 90% of the time though, I sit here and my mind starts chattering away and I'm bringing it back to the breath, escaping on a thought. Back to the breath, escaping on a thought. But undoubtedly, meditation has huge benefit for me. Because what I've noticed since meditating frequently is that during the day, the entire rest of the day, I'm calmer, clearer, more energized, more focused, more creative, a better problem solver, and a better decision maker. The benefits of meditation do not come in the practice, they come outside and around the practice. And clarity is similar in this respect. In your clarity practices, your meditation is one of them, your reading, your seminars, your journaling, your reflecting, your creative problem solving moments, the clarity doesn't come at that time. Some of it does, but not very often and not all of it. The clarity actually comes completely around and outside the moments when you're trying to find clarity. And so what I want to remind you is that when you're reading the books and you're doing the journaling and you're going to the seminars and you say, I still don't have a flipping clue what I'm doing here. I feel lost, I feel confused, I feel that I'm lacking direction. During that moment, clarity is not going to come. And the more you strive and push and try to force it, clarity is not going to come. The clarity actually just snaps into your head when you're walking to meet someone for a coffee, or you're brushing your teeth before bed, or your head has hit the pillow. That's when a lot of mine can happen when I'm trying to go to sleep. The clarity just comes when it's ready. And that's the last lesson I want to impart to you on this video. The clarity comes when it's ready. So throughout 2018, I'm sure that you want clearer vision and direction and focus on all the different things you want to do. And what I want to say to you is that that direction, that vision, that focus is going to come to you. The clarity does come, but don't try and force it all on the 1st or 2nd of January. Don't try to map out who you want to be and what you want to have done by the end of the year on the first day or two of the year. Because you grow and develop throughout the year. You grow and develop into the vision. You grow and develop into your purpose. So take time and be patient, and the clarity comes exactly when it's ready. At the start of this year, I didn't know what my next step was for the business. I didn't know what I wanted to build and create. The first thing that came to me at the start of the year was membership. I had the idea that I wanted some kind of community. I wanted to bring people in. I wanted there to be a certain exclusivity. When you pay your membership for something, say you go to a gym and you pay your membership, there is a community of people who see each other all the time because they're using the gym all the time. And I wanted the insight that I wanted that with my business as well. I wanted a community. I wanted people to be members. I wanted to feel that they had a membership of something. They were a part of something. What that something was, I couldn't really get my head around. But as the year went on, I had this moment of inspiration. And funnily enough, I can't even remember when this was. I just know that roughly in the springtime going into the summer, I remember because it was warm, it was sunny. I remember at some moment I had nothing, and then I had Author Your Life. At one moment in the spring, Author Your Life came into my head, and it chimed on so many levels. Looking back at my personal story, my values, I wanted people to author their lives. I wanted people to take charge of their stories and write the script for who they wanted to be and how they wanted their life to go. And suddenly everything started falling into place. I wanted people to be members of the Author Your Life community. I wanted my work to be centered around this principle of Author Your Life, centered around this principle of being your full, authentic self. And everything started clicking into place. And for the second half of the year, Author Your Life has continued to grow, develop, evolve, And it's still growing, developing, evolving. In fact, that is one of my key projects for 2018, is really getting this solidified, getting the foundations of Author Your Life, creating the community, creating the movement, creating the ethos. It's all growing and developing and evolving organically. And it has been over this year. But I needed to wait for that clarity to come before I could do so. Yes, I had the idea to have a membership, but until I had the banner, until I had the idea to bring that membership under, I was stuck. I was creating all these really bad ideas for names and ideas for membership. It wasn't chiming with me, it wasn't connecting with me. But as soon as Author Your Life came in, that was it. I was clear, I knew what that was all about. And so I've started to bring Author Your Life into all the things that I'm doing. I've started writing my next book, the Author Your Life book. Everything is starting to come into place, but only started coming into place when that clarity came. Now, have I been sitting on my backside for the last 2 years hoping clarity on Author Your Life would come? No. I've been reading the books. I've been going to the seminars. I've been hosting the seminars. I've been delivering seminars. I've been doing the journaling. I've been having the discussions with growth-minded people. All of these things just come in and build on each other, build on each other, build on each other. And for ages it seems like nothing is happening. And then one day it starts to click into place. And even on that one day it starts to click into place, there is still more clarity and direction to come. I'm sure how I see Author Your Life here at the end of 2017 will be very different from how I see Author Your Life at the end of 2018. And I'll tell you more about that in my end of year video at the end of 2018. But for now, I'm happy and clear that Author Your Life is something that I want to build and grow and develop. And what I want to say to you is, if you're not entirely sure about what you want to do in 2018, or you think you know what you want to do in 2018, clarity will come, and clarity will come when you least expect it. So be patient, continue to honor the process, put in the disciplined work, and eventually it all starts to fall into place. So folks, I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's a bit of a longer one, a bit more of a freestyle one. I kind of had the 5 lessons in my mind and the things I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to see how it grew and evolved and came out here on camera. It's been a little time since I've filmed a video as well. As I said, there's been a couple months hiatus, some time that I've taken away from doing these kind of things. So throwing myself straight back in with a long video. I didn't start with an easy 3-minuter or a 60-second Instagram video. No, I've come here and I've done however long this video is. I don't even know, because I'm just speaking into the camera until I feel that I've covered all the points. So I hope you found this useful. And most of all, I hope you have a really happy, productive, and fulfilled 2018. Whatever it is that you wanted to change in the new year, whether it is seeking greater alignment with yourself, greater alignment with your work, or greater alignment with others, I know that you'll find the way. I know that whatever has brought you here is a flame in you, a spark, an idea that you can and will be better. And you don't actually need to hear this, but I'll tell you that yes, you're right. You can and will be better. So thank you very much for taking the time to come onto the channel and watch the video. Thank you for your continued support and engagement. And until I speak to you next time, go out there and author your life. I'll speak to you soon. David. Hey guys, it's David again. Thank you for watching this video. And if you'd like to take your growth a little further, I have 3 things down below that you can click. First of all is that big red subscribe button to make sure that you stay up to date with all the videos on this channel and you don't miss a thing. Number 2 is a free online course that I have on creating powerful change in your life. Totally free, no sign-ups, just click the link in the video description. Thirdly and finally, I would like to invite you into our Author Your Life community. This is a free Facebook group where like-minded individuals like yourself come together to change their stories and help change the stories of other people. I would love to welcome you into this community to help you continue on your personal journey and help you become the hero of your story. Guys, thank you very much for joining me today. I hope to be able to speak more to you in the future. Now go out there and author your life.